in the yellow. Good. You can hear Grace back there. Okay. Let me go ahead and turn on the recorder. Hello, everybody. My name is Stephen D. Kelley. This is the Stephen D. Kelley Show, and this is Truthcat Radio, www.truthcatradio.com. And let's see, what is it? It's 6:03, and it's 2/23/2023. That's interesting. Hang on. Let me look at that again. 2/23/2023. Tell me that isn't some cool numbers right there. Wow. That's pretty interesting. Must mean something, right? Anyway, once again, welcome. This, like I said, this is Truthcat Radio, www.truthcatradio.com. And it's still February, almost March. But we have a pretty important show tonight. I think I'm going to call it City Under the Getty. I had all kinds of ideas. Some go back to that City Under the Plane or Getty. Well, I'll explain my reasoning. But before I do, I'm going to be like a crass commercial person. Well, first I'm going to say thank you, James Rake, for having me on the show the other night with Renetta. And if you're new to the station and you're listening because you saw us on that show last night, I'm going to say welcome. And this is just going to be one of those shows, so I hope you enjoy it. Now, at the same time, also, if you want to help out, of course, I'm going to say right up front, help us out. You got to send money to the PayPal, and the PayPal is StephenKelley714@yahoo.com. Thank you very much. And the correspondence email is law17gun@AOL.com, and that's where you go to get the book or get healing or get to become a Jedi. Okay, anyway, we're talking about what's underneath the Getty. We're going to talk about tunnels. You know, I say there's 100,000 children under the Getty. People think, well, that's just impossible. How are you going to house and feed that many children under this one museum with its 6 levels of basement, et cetera, and this kind of thing? They envision a footprint of some sort of structure that's somehow in ratio to the thing above it on the surface, including the time it takes you to walk from one side to the other. So what we're going to do, and I'm hoping that when I'm done here, it's going to give you a much clearer picture of just how bad the situation is, and hopefully make you feel a little bit bad for allowing it to be like this for so long, because, you know, one of the issues we're going to have to examine here, because we're going to look at the testimony of a witness. And when I say testimony of a witness, I'm only going to give you a little bit right now because the witness isn't quite ready to come out completely. There's some legal stuff going on and things like that. But this witness not only has some very compelling eyewitness testimony involving the Getty and the system underneath there and the system of collecting loosh, et cetera, and all these wonderful, horrible atrocities are being committed against children in the system that they use to recruit children. It's all going to be expelled. There's a lot that I'm not going to tell you because some of it is incredibly, well, let's just put it this way. We're talking about people whose names you all know, who've been on TV and show business, and we can't talk about these things unless, well, you know, you're ready to go all the way. I personally am ready to go all the way, but for the sake of discretion, we're going to leave all those juicy names out. And we're just going to kind of skirt around as best I can details that might lead back to this person directly. And I want to thank her for providing this information to me at all and basically telling me what's safe to talk about and what she was comfortable with. So, where do I start? Now, ultimately, I guess we'll start with the loosh, the adrenochrome that everybody likes to talk about. And this process, of course, is something that's been going on for a long time. Certainly, there's a lot of reasons for doing it, feeding aliens, trying to help people live longer, this kind of thing. Who's making that noise? Kitten? Shh, it's not using it. Anyway. But we do know that children are abducted in large amounts and they're subjected to tortures and body fluids are collected. People think that this is strictly some sort of a adrenochrome, adrenaline byproduct that's being collected. Perhaps it is. Perhaps it's many things. Perhaps it's also material that they're using to create serum that they hope that will give them extended life and eternal youth, more youthful appearances. This is beyond adrenochrome. We also know that loosh is going on. Loosh collection is going on. This is something that goes beyond this 3D. We're not going to talk about that, but what we are going to talk about is the actual horrors that are going on under your feet right now, especially if you live in the metropolitan Los Angeles area. And when I say the metropolitan Los Angeles area, I mean all the way from the coast of the, let's see, well, Vandenberg Air Force Base, all the way west to Riverside, San Bernardino counties, and then south down to, well, South County, Orange County, and everything there, Long Beach, Anaheim, the whole 9 yards. So in other words, from space, all that concrete, that big square area, this is the area where the tunnels and the footprint and the area of operation that we're actually talking about is. So when I say there's 100,000 children down there, there's well over 100,000 children over there, and they are scattered over this whole area. They're not all crammed underneath the Getty all at one time. A lot of them underneath places like Disneyland, various locations in Hollywood, Inglewood, all over, Long Beach, Chinatown, Beverly Hills, Brentwood, nice neighborhoods all over the place. UCLA, USC, Riverside, San Bernardino, various shipping ports, various airports, various large buildings such as the, what is it, the Los Angeles County Music Pavilion, right? The Amundsen Center, I think they call it. Yeah, that thing. The big thing right in the middle of the LA, right next to it. Guess what? There's an elevator there. Now, once again, I'm not going to use the word paraphrase, but I'm going to tell you about some of these locations. I'm going to tell you about a Eugene Getty sighting at one of these locations. I'm going to tell you about the entire process of collecting the loosh. And I'll even go so far as to talk a little bit about the nature of the torture and the collection of the children and how certain children are treated. And again, one of the most important things we're going to try to talk about tonight is I'm going to call the Allie Carter syndrome. And that's where a child has to kill to escape, or a child has to basically be put in a situation for where it's them or another child. So the bottom line is not every child that goes down there and has loosh collected and is tortured and becomes part of an MK Ultra type program, not all of them are killed and eaten, although many, many, many of them are. But at the same time, there is a certain cream of the crop that are located and brought to these locations from far away. And don't be naive, because everybody goes through this. I don't care if you're living in Kansas, Milwaukee. It doesn't matter where you're living, New York. If someone identifies you in your schooling and in your testing and in the programs that are administered to you at a young age, and if you are picked out because you have certain abilities, skills, genetics, etc., you will find your place yourself somewhere around here. That's what they do. So they find these talented individuals and they basically not just the talented individuals, but they program everybody. Everybody gets assigned to tasks that they are fit for, and they're being used. Nothing is actually an accident. So let's say, well, do I want to dwell on the child being brought in? Well, sure, why not? Let me see how I can do this. Well, let's just put it this way. In show business, when you sign that contract, when a parent offers up their child to a company like, say, Disney or Paramount or Harvey Weinstein, perhaps, there's a contract signed, even if there isn't some sort of sex act taking place on a casting couch prior to that contract being signed. It's being signed in something they call living ink. So it's a real contract. It's not a thing that's going to wash away on the paper. It's going to be there forever. It's like signing your life away. It is exactly what it sounds like, and that's what happens. But when you sign this contract, it's like joining the military. They're going to own you. You're going to lose your rights, and it's going to be forever. And basically, I'm sure most parents that give up these children for these purposes don't realize that, but I'll say one thing. When they're performing, and this is at the highest levels of showbiz, when they're standing backstage, they're naked. These are like dolls that are dressed up in different outfits between their going back and forth on stage. This is something that is the oblivious parents are happy to see their kids out there in the spotlight and all this, but once the kid is out of the spotlight, they are out of control and they are going to do anything, and it's going to be involving being taken underground from various locations, being programmed, being, oh boy, they're not liking what I'm talking about right now, being programmed to be afraid, being programmed to understand that what you're doing is somehow beneficial for humanity, and that you're part of a project because you're special, and that you're going to help others somehow by enduring what you're being forced to endure. There's obviously drugs involved. And I want to say this is probably a good way for me to get away from going too far down this somewhat personal path of our witness. But that is that for years now, you've heard me talk about my techniques and how we know about these things. And it's certainly a lot of it is coming from remote viewing. And that is actually really important, because a lot of the testimony and a lot of the details that I'm going to share with you that were provided to me basically are exactly the same as what I saw during the remote viewing. And we'll get to that. But what does that prove? That's just kind of, it's basically important to know, because if somebody looks at something that I said, or any individual says for that matter, and they say, well, that's not enough, I need proof. Where are all the other individuals that must have been exposed to this? And yes, the reality is true. Mathematically speaking, if you say that, for instance, all of these people in Hollywood, these people that are in front of cameras, these stars, influencers, whatever, but especially the ones that are on camera. Kenton, stop that. They come and they go. They have new generations that come and they go. So there's constantly new bodies being fed into this system, starting at a very young age of programming. And when they get these contracts, it never goes away. They are always have their life in the balance till the very end, even if they are beyond their years as a exploited child or an MK Ultra victim, something of this nature. And obviously these guys would prefer to exploit them as children. But the point is that someone is always going to die. Someone is always dying. The fear of being that one that's going to die never goes away, even when you come back to the surface and you try to have a reasonably normal life. You know that at any time you could be called, you could be taken. It's like these rock stars that you see them dying. And a lot of times, it doesn't matter which one it is, at what age they are, whatever, it is a sacrifice. It is their time, because at one time or another, they all do have to die. So let's basically go down a list of some of the locations that we're talking about here in the area. Now, the testimony that I'm talking about here basically took place in a period of time, which of course started as a child, year 7, being recruited into this stuff for very early age, going up to 11. I think this is about the age that they really are done with them, with the whole loosh collecting and the sexual exploitation of children business. By then, they're moving into more of a older thing, and they're treated differently. But this is that is the prime age. So for this particular situation, we're talking about a period of time that was roughly around late 70s and the 80s, period of the 80s, which was the big hair and disco and Michael Jackson and all this stuff. Well, anyway, before the Getty Center was actually built, which wasn't until at least 2000 that they actually opened it up to the public. I mean, I got exposed to it before then, of course, but before that was built, the stuff that was underneath the Getty, the stuff in the process and the exploitation of minors and the collection of loosh and everything else was still there. The secret space program was still there. Many elevators were going down there. Playboy Mansion was there. Tunnels going to UCLA, USC, it was all still there. What else was still there? Malibu, Getty home was still there. Now, if you draw a line from, say, Vandenberg through Malibu, through where the Getty is roughly today, through UCLA, and then through the Amundsen Center, what do they call that? What's the longhand? You keep going. Well, for one thing, you're going to go under me. You're going to go through Montebello. You're going to go through underneath the City of Industry, where I'm at. But if you keep going, it's going to go straight to the heart of Riverside. And if you keep going, it's going to go to Phoenix. And if you keep going, it's going to go to Houston. Every single one of these places have tunnel entrances. So basically, this is just one big tunnel. There's lots of big tunnels all over the place, but this is one particular branch of one big tunnel. And there are many, many entrances, and they feed to lower levels. And from these lower levels, they have elevators that go to other levels. And ultimately, they all connect to these big tunnels. But between that, there are cities all over. If you had to walk this, it would go on. Los Angeles Music Center, thank you so much. Yes, Los Angeles Music Center. All right. Well, I have a lot of basically stories or testimonies about trips down these various elevators, because I know you guys want to know about entrances. You want to know about elevators. You want to know what it was like. You want to know what happened down there. So we're going to go a list of some of these things. Some of them are kind of interesting, like the one in Inglewood. Very interesting. Let's see. Where should we start? There's one in a canyon. Now here's a good one. Solstice Canyon in Calabasas is basically on the backside of the mountains that are essentially the, shall we say, ant colony that is the tunnel system that runs from Vandenberg all the way to Griffith Park Observatory. So that whole Santa Monica range, which is basically where all this stuff is, that's where this Solstice Canyon is. And I have it on good authority that there's a waterfall out there in Solstice Canyon, and it has a door behind it, and the door has a tunnel, and the tunnel looks like something they made over, say, I don't know, Disneyland, and it turns into someplace, probably an exit path for an escape path for one of these tunnels. But basically, again, if you look at it on the map and you get your own map and you put a pin in some spots that we talk about tonight, you'll see they make a nice relative straight line. And here's the thing. If it's hundreds of yards or half a mile between your entrance and one tunnel system, that's a lot of walking, or that's a lot of driving around on a little tram or a little cart, whatever. There's many, many levels of stuff. So let's talk about some of these things. Let's see. We want to make sure we get to the whole Loosh collection thing. But like I said, Houston, definitely underground connections there, and obviously Houston, there's a big waterfront there. There certainly is the possibility that there are submarines, etc. Playboy Mansion, we all know about Playboy Mansion. We know about UCLA, and like I said, when you trace the line, you see it's going to also go underneath USC. Westwood, the Amundsen Theater. Let's see. Here's one, of course, we talked about earlier. It's a club. It's no longer actually open, but it's on Martin Luther King Boulevard, 2323 Martin Luther King Boulevard. And it was owned by Martha Gibbs. We got to get to that one. Oh, let's see. Oh, then, of course, there's the child hunting. You guys, you like to talk about child hunting. We know Camp David, that retreat that they like to go to in Maryland. There's another one apparently at Camp David in Texas where they do similar things. But we know the one in Maryland where all the world leaders like to hang out. They hunt children. They have child hunts. They don't just have child hunts. They actually train the children in other locations what to do during a child hunt. So when they're released during the hunt, they don't just freak out. They actually know what to do. It's incredibly organized. Let's do some stories here. Disneyland. We're going to talk about Disneyland. Club 33. That's been around for a little while, obviously. Let's see, which one do we want to pick? Okay. Gosh. I know she's like listening. She's like, okay, I'm going to talk about Disneyland first because I know some of you guys are into it. Now, if you're in Anaheim, you know the stories about the tunnels under Disneyland. Yes, there's huge amounts of that stuff. And if you want to go by using Disneyland language, you can call this stuff backstage. Because underneath everything down there, at least one level, there's going to be all kinds of equipment and nonsense and showbiz gear and nonsense from various different rides and attractions, and that's their backstage. But if you've ever been to Club 33, and of course, if you know anything about the lore, you'll know that 33 stands for the Masonic thing of the 33rd level of the Masonic Lodge. And yes, Disney was a Mason, and yes, the Masons are all involved in stuff, and yes, things go on there. But how do you access the underground from Disneyland? Now, of course, if let's say if some child is snatched off of a ride or something of this nature and ends up in the underground, they will probably be taken to this area, which is in the close vicinity of Club 33. And then from there, they will be taken to another place where there will be an elevator. And this will take them down to someplace else, and this will go all over the place. Now, I also want to share something here real quick because we're going to move on all kinds of fun things. But I do want to just say, and I've got permission to talk about this stuff, is that, yeah, there is a secret room in Cinderella's castle. And if you find it, you'll know because there is a pumpkin mosaic on the floor. But in this particular room, they perform rituals. And these rituals probably run the gamut of who knows what, but they do indeed, we know for sure, use this particular location for child orgies. And when I say child, they mean children that are old enough to perform in such things. But this is certainly happening under Disneyland, and of course, there's probably much more, but we know for sure that one of the main tunnel entrances is almost directly connected to this entry that they use, which is Club 33. So again, if you're willing to park out in the parking lot and walk all that way, that's fine. But again, there's another thing you can remember is that guys like Johnny Depp, who we know participate in making the snuff films, which we're going to talk about hopefully, that are recorded often or produced at Lookout Laboratories over there where Jared Leto lives. He likes to show up over there at Disneyland and play Jack Sparrow at the ride. He'll actually impersonate himself or his character at the ride. And of course, people ask, well, what's Blue Bayou? Blue Bayou is the exit to the ride. So in other words, the exact place where he is performing and playing pirate has a door that goes directly to the undergrounds. So maybe, just maybe, if he wants to go down there and go to the spa or go whatever, do his thing, get his adrenochrome, he needs to play Dancing Monkey. So you have to understand, this is the nature of show business. Once you sign that contract, they own you. You are their slave. You are the dancing monkey. You will do whatever they ask. And if they take your life, if they decide they need to take that, they're going to take it when the time comes. So let's see, that's Disneyland. Now, bear in mind, when someone is taken down these places, especially a witness like the person we're talking about here, it's to be a victim. Sometimes it's just to harvest the loosh, which we'll talk about, but sometimes it's to be used as entertainment for these predatory types. And obviously, violence is only used mainly to control the others and make them do whatever is necessary, but different things are happening. Like, for instance, there's a club in LA, or at least the club is gone. I assume the undergrounds are still there, we'll mention, and I was told about this, and it's a club that was started by Martha Gibbs, a jazz club that's right in the middle of Inglewood. They basically tell you when you look it up on Wiki, they say, advised, be advised. It's they don't basically say that you're going to get shot if you go there, but they tell you to be advised. Anyway, the club's closed right now, but the thing is it used to be a very ritzy jazz club, and of course Marla Gibbs played the maid on the Jeffersons, and there's a whole story in that too. But the thing is that this location also had a connection to the underground. It had staircases that led below to something of a speakeasy. There was a club underground that was beyond the club that was on the top. And this, of course, led to other areas that basically connected to everything. But at this particular location, it was predominantly frequented by what you would call a black elite. So the people there were of the elite class, but they were your Oprah Winfreys of the world, I assume, people like that. And they, of course, would have young girls who were not black performing for them, and they would, of course, do things and get pay or whatever to do things. Now, this, of course, was part of it. So that gives you an idea that this is not a Jewish thing per se or whatever. Masons, Satanists, people who do this stuff come in all flavors. Well, let's see, what's another one? I told you about the place in Encino that we know hooks up, and I told you that hooks up to the Skirball Center, and I told you that hooks up to the Getty, and I told you about the Playboy Mansion, how it hooks up. I told you about Angelina Jolie's house and how it hooks up. We know Jared Leto's house has been hooked up for a long time, forever. We know that all kinds of homes and businesses and cities and various paths along this big tunnel have been hooked up. I know that the high school over here in La Puente is hooked up. The old buildings in Riverside are hooked up. That church up on the top of the hill in Cresswell is hooked up, where they had Satan's Castle. Let's see, what else we got here? Camp David, I told you that's hooked up. Oh, UCLA, a lot. I guess we need to talk about the Loosh collection. Now, our wonderful witness victim person basically said that, first of all, she was of an elite group. These are people that are in show business, real live, on TV, in your face, show business people, of course, but at an early age. So you have to understand that not everybody that went through this that was abducted. I mean, these are people that signed a contract and went through this and had their programming, and had their loosh collected, and had their torture and everything else. But at the same time, there were all sorts of other kids, often much younger, who went through and had the same experience, who were killed right away, who didn't get to walk away, who were fresh meat. And when I had my walk through these corridors where all this stuff was going on, to me, my impression was that two things. One, there were long, endless, almost seemingly endless hallways with rooms on either side, rooms where children would be on restraints. They would be restrained on stretchers of some sort, and they would be hooked up to IVs. Of course, the witness tells me, no, these are not beds, they're not stretchers. They're basically like dentist chairs that they're strapped in from the head, the arms, the feet, and the body. And they're fed these drugs, of course, and they're also given stimulation. But there are other areas where I said I saw rooms where there were endless amounts of children in a single room, all in these stretcher things, chairs, getting IVs, doing the same thing. So I asked her what the type, how many children were there? She said, I couldn't count. So I'm assuming, okay, that makes sense because we're talking probably hundreds of them, all different ages and what have you. So we know that the whatever it was, the institute, the one that they used way back when, I want to say Tolstoy. I know it's not Tolstoy, but the whatever that institute was, the one where they used to do the mind control on people like John Lennon, is very similar to what they showed in that movie Clockwork Orange, where they programmed these guys by basically forcing them to be looking at horrible things and loud sounds and all kinds of stimulation to essentially break them and program them. So this happened there also. So I'll basically do my best to describe it as I was described. Now, of course, for the special children, the ones in this group, I guess the ones that were being told, that the ones that were being allowed to come back, they weren't going to be eaten, they were treated almost like, well, I'm not there, so I can't really say, but let's just say that how they were treated was not exactly like cattle. The first thing that happened, of course, were they were fed. And of course, a lot of these people are showbiz and extra types or whatever. They're of they're on contract with these studios. And this is, of course, why they would be involved with things like the Amundsen. But they would be fed by something that you would describe as like craft services. They would all go, if you don't know anything about show business and craft services, it's basically like a setup that they have where they supply all sorts of food and candy and everything. It's like somebody opened up a 7-Eleven and a McDonald's and just spread it out in front of you and said, okay, whatever you want, here it is. That's sort of like what craft services is, and sometimes it's even more extravagant, sometimes it's not so extravagant. But then from there, they would go into a series of sessions where they would be into these restrained and in these chairs and hooked up to these IVs. Now, getting them there, getting them to, first of all, obviously they had to walk there. They had to walk through endless corridors, and we're talking about children of all ages that might actually be too tired to walk this far and needed to be helped by the other children just to get to where they had to go. So nobody really knew where it was. In other words, you could have entered somewhere near the Getty, or perhaps, like I said, in LA over there by the Amundsen Center, and you would have had to take various little trams and corridors until you reached this lab where all this stuff would be going on. And I suspect that all of this is going on underneath UCLA or one of the other universities, more than likely UCLA, because it's very close to where the Getty is today. But once they got in the chair, they were fed drugs, and of course the drugs put them in a state where they probably wouldn't remember things, and they would be more susceptible to the stimulant that was going to be introduced. And I was told that this particular person was able to get around having to eat the pill, so to speak, and essentially do this with the permission and acknowledgement of the handler type person that was responsible for making sure that the kid took the pill and kept their eyes open during the programming and things like this. I'm not going to go into details, into too many details here, because we'll have to save that for later, but there are quite a few rich details of this particular process. But suffice it to say that horrible things, loud sounds and flashing lights and all of this stuff was on the screen to cause these children to get these subliminal messages. And one of the things that was used that they were forced to watch, of course, during the collection of these liquids were snuff films. The very same films of these guys killing children, kind of like Johnny Depp. Imagine you're a child and you see your Johnny Depp killing children. Imagine what that would do to your brain. We know this happened because we know he hung out with people like Hunter S. Thompson. We knew that he did this. The two of them worked together to make these films like this, and they were actually produced by Harvey Weinstein. We know what he is. Now, apparently there's like 3 steps where these children are in these seats with these things hooked up. During the process of the collection of the fluids, where they're actually taking fluids from the body, whatever it is, adrenochrome, plasma that they're extracting adrenochrome from, whatever it is, this is all being extracted during the trauma and the visual and the mental sensory stimulation that's going on. There's a lot of other details that are important, but after this, of course, there's a period of recuperation where the child might find themselves in another room being administered, say like one of those separate rooms in the hallway, getting another type of a nutrient or something to replace the material that was extracted, and to essentially bring them back from whatever state they're in, if they may be in a catatonic state at this point from all the trauma that they were just exposed to. And then after that, of course, there is another session which basically involves feeding them, you know, kind of like what they did with the craft services. But in this case now, it's more along the lines of things that are nutritious and hopefully able to supply nutrients that might have been taken during this procedure. Now, one of the things that I found very interesting, and I need to continue, of course, but I want to go into this really quick because seems like we're running out of time, and that is the use of dogs to intimidate. Now, it was actually described to me that what they would do with these children, and I'm talking about children that are stars, okay, on TV, on camera, taken to a big room and chained to a floor with people coming in with vicious dogs and basically threatening any one of these children at any time to be eaten by one of these dogs, and actually allowing these dogs to eat one of the children on occasion just to show the other children what they could do at any given time they want. But here's the thing. The witness said that she thought that these dogs were given commands in Czechoslovakian, and I thought, well, Czechoslovakian, no, that's Yugoslavian. The dogs at the Getty are trained in Yugoslavian. I've known that because the guy that trust fund manager for the Getty told me that. He told me that what he called the CIA compound, which we know now is actually NSA, controlled the dogs. They had the dogs. They bred the dogs. They had a home off to the side of the Getty where they kept all the dogs they used to keep control of the perimeter. So why wouldn't they take a couple of them downstairs to go torture a few children or maybe eat one here and there just as a little treat to keep the dogs vicious? Of course they spoke to him in Yugoslavian. There you go. That's just one more damn verification. But you know, hey, that's just one of those things. Let's see. I know we're running out of time. Darn it. Well, let me just speak about Eugene Getty because this is kind of important. Now, you know, I talk about Gordon Getty all the time. I don't even know if Eugene's alive anymore, but remember, this is happening back around 1980-ish. And this is well before the Getty Center was built, but it was certainly during the operation of what was going on underneath the Getty in Malibu. And we know that for the longest time, none other than J. Paul Getty himself was having children delivered to the port of Long Beach or whatever from the Philippines, and they went straight to his facility under the Getty Malibu, which was built to house these children for his elite buddies to do exactly this. And of course, the new one is even better. But the point is, Eugene Getty, even though we never hear anything about him, and you guys, this is your cue, this is a new target. He paid a visit to one of these Lush collection centers, which was probably underneath UCLA. And before he paid his visit, the children who were strapped into these chairs were basically told that the person that was going to be visiting the room during their session was Eugene Getty, and he was some terribly important person, and that if you even so much as blinked an eyelash at him when he walked by and looked at you, that he could have you killed instantly. And he was an extremely powerful individual. Now, here this is, long before I ever said anything about these guys, long before the Getty Center was ever built. And you've got not Gordon Getty, not J. Paul Getty, but Eugene Getty being treated like the god of death to children who are, well, shall we say, stars, each one of them, but at the same time being threatened with death. Now here's the thing, and I really want to cover this really quick before we got to go. You guys know with the Allie Carter thing, you know that I basically said that she had to kill children. I made her admit to having to kill children, and she did. Now, in public, she will actually actively say now that she had to kill children. I am not saying that any of these children that might have been offered up by their parents are responsible for any of this stuff. I think they were sold into this system, and they were drugged, they were brainwashed, they were exploited sexually, mentally, etc., economically, you name it. And money, of course, is a big thing. It certainly was a big thing that got the parents convinced that it was a good idea to offer up their children. But the thing is, when you've got a room full of children and they're all being controlled by the threat of one of them being killed and them having to act a certain ways lest they be the one being killed, they're going to do things. They're going to hope and pray that they are not, at the end of the day, the one being killed, but one of them is going to be killed. And even if they're not killed then, they will be killed later. And a lot of times when you see these young people, especially these stars, these people that people look up to, these influencers, they just flat out die all of a sudden. That's what this is. If it's not one, it's going to be another. If it's not this day, it's going to be another day. It doesn't matter who they are. And they all know this can happen. Now, we know that people in the Masons, they do the same thing. Once they sign that contract, once they take those vows, they know that at any time something can happen. And of course, we, the Jedi, and we, those of us in the Occupy the Getty movement, we take this stuff head on. And we don't hold anything against anybody. We offer salvation. We offer forgiveness to everybody. We want everybody to be back in the family, and we're not judging people that have been involved in this stuff because we know that when you're a child and you're forced to witness these things and be put through this torture and then have to choose between you and someone else, that's not something that anybody wants to be having to deal with, and it's not something that you can blame anybody, especially a child, for having to make some harsh decision or do something to try to survive. That's certainly understandable. What is important, though, is that they realize that their experiences and their knowledge and and the ability of them to share that experience can help others, can help save others, and can help us put an end to all this thing, which is ultimately what we're doing. And that's what this mission is going to do, and we're not afraid of it. And if you do come and join us, not only will you feel better because you've basically are going to be free of this stuff, but at the same time, you're going to be welcome as one of us, and we're going to protect you and heal you, and you'll be one of us. Bottom line, nobody will ever be able to hurt you again. So this is extremely important. But at the other time, we also have to advise you that the money thing, it's always going to be a problem. And those of us who have money, you know how hard it is to even consider giving it up. But at the same time, you guys have to realize that what we're talking about, especially with this mission and exposing the evil that's underneath this city that we call Los Angeles and other places in the world, it's to end that once and for all, and to bring this gold and living water and technology and ancient history and ancient knowledge and bring that all to the surface and free these slaves and make this stuff never happen again. So in order to understand the value of that, you have to realize that the system that we live in and the system that allowed this shit to happen in the first place and allowed it to spread and continue, that's the same system that controls the money that we all fight so hard to have, to be able to eat. So you have to realize that the sooner we complete this mission, the sooner we occupy the Getty and thereby occupy all these other places, the ant colony, if you will, that's down there doing this stuff, it'll be over. The money will be free, the technology will be free, nobody will go without. That's really what we're talking about, and you really have to lose the fear in order for that to happen. So, gosh, we don't even have time to take a break. I don't think it's really worth it at this point. I'm just going to go ahead because my voice is shot. If you haven't joined our Telegram group, please do. And of course, you have to join Telegram, get that stuff installed on your computer or your phone. And once you get there, you need to do a search for our group, which of course is Occupy the Getty, one word, / and then Stephen D. Kelley. And that's actually, there's a space between the middle initial there, okay? Stephen space D space, whatever. And now if you want to email me because you want a copy of the book, Lasers, Cavers, and Magic, and you want it for free, send an email to law17gun@aol.com. Okay, and any other correspondence you need to talk to me, please send it there. Do not send it to the email address that we use for the PayPal because that's only for money. And also, if you do send money to the PayPal, please find a place where you can check it for a friend or family because otherwise I got to send it back. All right, that's just one of those things. Also, you know, like I said, free book, and there's healing. Healing is free, and this is important. If you want the healing, just cut to the chase. You got to send me a photo where I can see your face, no sunglasses on you, see your eyes, give me your full name, not your made-up name, but your full name, whatever your parents call you. And also tell me what's wrong. Tell me what you need fixed. I don't care what it is, just tell me. And like I said, and I need your permission. So if it's not you, I need their permission too. Okay, very important stuff. And what else? Okay, again, PayPal, Stephen Kelley 714 at yahoo.com. You got the Telegram. Yep, check. Yeah, that's good enough. All right. Well, let me just look and see real quick who's listening before I say goodnight to you all, because sometimes I'll just be surprised. Oh, there's a good number of people here. Let me double check. Yeah, pretty decent number of people. Okay, hi guys, everybody. If you're new-time listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. And there will be this show will play on loop on the channel www.truthcatradio.com. If you're listening on one of the other channels like Cynthia's Brighton page or one of these other pages, be advised that they don't have anything to do with the PayPal and all that. That all comes back to me. And of course, if you do donate money, thank you so much. Those of you that do contribute. It helps. Okay, it's not what we do it for. Healing is free. I'm never gonna. It doesn't matter. I could cure your cancer. I'm not gonna ask you for anything. All right, but you do need to be involved, and you do need to be passionate about this stuff, and you do need to place the mission in a status level or priority level that is beyond normal human drama and BS. Okay, so whatever nonsense is going on in your life, you have to remember that what you do and how it reflects on the mission and how it influences other people that would become involved in the mission, for better or for worse, is on you. And and if you're not working to help us save the children, that's on you too. And if it's just, you got to understand, anything that you can do that's going to make this one day of hell less for those people, those children in those chairs, it's pretty damn important, and it can't happen soon enough. And it should have happened damn 12 years ago or whatever it was when I came out and first started talking about this stuff. Oh my God, why are we still talking about this stuff? All right. So with that, I'll see you guys in the Telegram group. And those of you that are listening live, thank you. And those of you that listen to recorded, thank you also. And again, my name is Stephen D. Kelley. And we are Truthcat Radio, www.truthcatradio.com. And let's see, I did tell you there was the Stephen D. Kelley Show. I actually have Jose kicking back here right now. We're hanging out, and hopefully we're going to have some burritos or something afterwards, I hope. Something I can stick in my mouth because I'm still dealing with one good tooth. Sucks. Anyway, guys. All right. Once again, with that, my name is Stephen Kelley, and I'm out of here. I'll see you next week, God willing. And I'm going to say goodbye. Wait, no. Good night. God bless. Adios. And goodbye.